Lights, camera, action! Hello there, American Girl fans. My name is Molly McIntire, and I'm here today to share my story with you. So I'm from the year 1943, when America and Germany were fighting in World War II. I lived in Jefferson, Illinois with my mom, my dad, my 14-year-old sister Jill, my 12-year-old brother Ricky, and my 5-year-old brother Brad. My dad was a doctor, and my mom worked at Red Cross headquarters. When the war started, my dad went off to England to help nurse the wounded soldiers. I missed him terribly, but he always sent wonderful letters to us, and I also have a picture of him in my locket. See? Neat, huh? My story begins one night at dinner time when I was sitting at the kitchen table daydreaming about my Halloween costume. I wanted to be Cinderella for Halloween and convinced my two best friends, Linda and Susan, to be her stepsisters. I had been sitting at the kitchen table for over 2 hours. Why was I sitting there so long, you ask? Well, when Mrs. Guilford, the housekeeper, called me and my brothers and sister to dinner, I saw something odd on my plate. I had made up my mind right away not to eat it. Mrs. Guilford told me it was mashed turnip from her victory garden. Ricky, Jill, and Brad ate all of their turnips, but I refused to eat mine. Mrs. Guilford told me I wasn't allowed to leave the table until the turnips were gone. So that's why I had been sitting at the table for so long. When Mom came home from work, she reheated the turnips and put butter, cinnamon, and a little sugar on them to make them taste better. When I tasted them, they actually tasted pretty good. I was glad that Mom wasn't mad at me for not eating them at first. Mrs. Guilford forgave me the next morning by making French toast for breakfast. After school, Linda, Susan, and I went to my house to plan our Halloween costumes. When I brought up the idea of being Cinderella and her two stepsisters, Linda asked who got to be Cinderella. I said we could decide that based on who had the prettiest dress. But Linda didn't think that was fair. When Jill came home, she had her friend Dolores with her. Ricky was acting all cool so Dolores would notice him. I realized Ricky had a crush on Dolores. Linda, Susan, and I teased Ricky about his crush on her. As Ricky pedaled away on his bicycle, he told us we'd be sorry and we'd pay for teasing him, but we just kept laughing. We talked more about Halloween costume ideas. When Mom came home, she said she didn't think it was right to use good material for Halloween costumes in wartime. But she did have a suggestion for us to dress up as Hawaiian hula dancers. Mom even showed us how to make grass skirts, and Susan showed us how to make flowers for necklaces and bracelets. It was a lot of fun. We got apples, donuts, molasses kisses, peanuts, popcorn balls, Tootsie Roll Pops, and glasses of cider from trick-or-treating. But when we got back to my house, a huge splash of water dumped down on our heads, and a hose sprayed right at us. It was Ricky getting back at us for teasing him about his crush on Dolores. Our costumes and candy were ruined. We were all furious at Ricky. After I cleaned up the mess and we had our baths, Mom came home with Brad after taking him trick-or-treating. Susan was ready to tell my mom what had happened, but I didn't want to tattle on Ricky. We went downstairs to the kitchen for hot chocolate and tried to avoid telling Mom how our costumes and treats got wet, but Mom knew something was up. She told Ricky that maybe he could tell her what happened. He said he just got a little water on our costumes as a joke, but then we revealed the truth behind that. Ricky's punishment? He had to apologize to us and give up his bag of Halloween treats. He could only keep one treat for himself. When we went back upstairs to my room, we talked about ways to get back at Ricky, and then I got an idea. The next morning after breakfast, Linda went outside with Ricky so Ricky could show her how to shoot hoops. Of course, Linda was just pretending that she wanted to know how to shoot hoops. Susan and I took Ricky's underwear out of his drawer and put them in bags. Then Susan told Jill and Dolores that Russ Campbell, a senior at their high school, wanted to know if they wanted to go for a ride with him in his car. They got very happy about that. But when they got outside, Susan and I yelled out my window and dumped Ricky's underwear out my window. Me, Susan, and Linda sang, "I see London, I see France, those are Ricky's underpants." Ricky told us this was war now, but my mom had seen the whole thing. She scolded all of us and said we would be doing work instead of going to the movies as our punishment. I apologized to Ricky. Linda, Susan, and I had to do Ricky's laundry as our punishment. But in a way, I did get to be Cinderella for Halloween, since we pretended to be 3 Cinderellas before the ball. Soon after this, my 3rd grade teacher, Miss Campbell, announced to us that we would be doing a lend a hand project to help the war effort. It was boys against girls. The winning team would get an award. We only had that weekend to do our projects. A girl in my class named Allison decided the girls' project would be knitting socks. I thought that was a terrible idea. I knew there was no way we would be able to knit a bunch of socks in just one weekend. Plus, I had had my own knitting struggles. The boys' project was collecting tinfoil and making a big ball out of it. When Linda, Susan, and I got to my house after school, we went upstairs to the storage room above the garage. It was our clubhouse. Linda said she hated knitting and wouldn't be able to knit any socks. I had an idea. We do another project, just the 3 of us. Be secret agents and collect 100 bottle tops for scrap metal. Linda and Susan agreed. Suddenly, Allison arrived. I didn't want to talk to her, and all 3 of us hid in the storage room. Allison came in and then left. She left an invitation to a knitting bee at her house the next day on the door. The next day was a rainy day. When I tried to put my rubber boots on, I realized they were too small. I couldn't get a pair of new boots since rubber was being used for the war. I had to wear Ricky's boots instead. We only got 10 bottle tops from the houses on my block and another 6 from the next block. Linda remembers that Allison lived on the next block. We went to her house and peeked in the window at the knitting bee. I didn't even see any socks that had been made. All of a sudden, we heard Allison's mom behind us. She brought us inside. We went into the living room. None of the knitters had gotten very far. They had only done the top part of a sock. They were just getting to the heel, and what they had knitted didn't even look like socks, but more like doll-sized blanket squares. That made me realize we should knit a blanket instead. When another girl in my class named Grace Littlefield threw down her knitting needles in frustration and said knitting was too hard, I brought up my blanket idea. Allison was against the idea, but the other girls thought we should make a blanket. And then Allison thought it was a good idea too. So we knitted a beautiful blanket. We decided to send it to my dad in England for the wounded soldiers. Susan revealed our collecting bottle tops idea, and Allison got 6 from her mom. Then we went to Grace's apartment and got the last 78 bottle tops we needed. We won the Lend a Hand contest and even had our picture in the newspaper. Soon winter arrived. 4 days before Christmas, I wrote a letter to my dad. At the end of my letter, I wrote that we hadn't gotten Christmas presents from him yet, but they would probably come soon. Jill didn't think I should have written that, but my mom said I could. I knew Dad wouldn't forget to send us Christmas presents. When my mom and Brad went to go hang our Christmas wreath on our door, Jill said there wouldn't be any wonderful surprises for Christmas, and we had to be realistic. I knew it would be a simple Christmas that year. I knew I should expect things I needed instead of things I dreamed about for Christmas. But I really wanted a doll for Christmas, a doll I could go on adventures with. Mom said we would have to make our own Christmas surprises, and it was never wrong to keep hoping for good things to happen, especially at Christmas time, since Christmas is all about hope. Our first Christmas surprise came the next morning when Mom made cinnamon buns for breakfast. Ricky and I took the Christmas tree lights and ornaments out of the Christmas closet. Jill thought we should make our Christmas tree look patriotic by using just blue and red ornaments and blue and red balls. I didn't like that idea. Mom had a better idea. We put a flag on top of our tree instead of an angel or star to make it patriotic. I liked that idea. Luckily, Jill didn't mind. Right after Mom and Brad left to go shopping, Grandma called. Jill answered the phone and talked to her. Her smile changed into a worried frown. When Jill hung up, she reveals that Grandma and Grandpa couldn't bring us our Christmas tree from their farm because they had a flat tire and their spare tire was too old to use on a long trip. We were disappointed. Then Jill decided to use her babysitting money to buy a tree. I had planned on giving Brad 50 cents for Christmas, but I decided to use it to go towards buying the tree. Ricky got his money too. Boy Scouts were selling Christmas trees, so we went to their Christmas tree lot and saw that the only tree we could afford to buy was a small skinny tree with a lot of gaps in between the branches. But when we decorated the tree, you would never have guessed it had gaps in it. It looked beautiful. Mom was pleased and proud of us for getting the tree and decorating it. When I woke up the next morning, I saw snow on the ground. I was so excited that I went outside to play in it in my pajamas. Ricky threw snowballs at me. I actually didn't mind that. Jill came outside and told him to stop. Just as Jill and I were about to make snow angels, I saw a big package on the front porch, and it was from Dad. Dad's Christmas presents had arrived. I was so happy. Jill was too. But then I saw Dad had written on the package, Jill and I put the package in the darkest corner of the storage room and covered it up with a blanket. Jill wanted to tell everyone about it, but I was able to convince her not to. I was able to prevent Brad, Ricky, and Mom from finding the box. We always went to church on Christmas Eve. This is my Christmas dress. Our Christmas Eve tradition was having breakfast for dinner: scrambled eggs, bacon, cinnamon toast, and hot chocolate. Then Mom read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" like Dad used to. The last line of the poem, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night," was our signal to go to bed. A few minutes before midnight, Jill and I snuck outside, got Dad's Christmas package out of the storage room, and put it under the tree. We saw that Santa had already visited, and for some reason that made us laugh so hard we had to cover our laughter with the pillows on the couch. When we were done laughing, we went back to bed. The next morning, Ricky, Brad, and Mom were so happy to see the package from Dad. Everything from Dad was what we all wanted for Christmas: a soldier's hat and canteen for Brad, a silk scarf from a real pilot's genuine parachute for Ricky, an ice skating hat for Jill, new gloves for Mom, and my doll! Here she is, dressed in her nurse outfit. I also got this snow globe for Christmas from Jill. After we opened our presents and were eating Christmas coffee cake, we heard Dad's voice on the radio. They were broadcasting from the USO Christmas party in England. Dad wished us a Merry Christmas. He said he missed us all and hoped we had a wonderful Christmas full of happy surprises. I knew what Dad said was still true. There are always surprises at Christmas. Winter melted into spring. I celebrate my birthday in April. A few weeks before my birthday, I found out that a girl named Emily Bennett was coming all the way from London to stay with us. Oh, here's Emily now. Say hi, Emily. Hello, everybody. Her Aunt Primrose was going to take her in, but she was sick in the hospital, so she would be staying with us until she got better. After I found out Emily was coming to stay with us, I asked Linda and Susan to come over, and I told them the news. Linda, Susan, and I had been inspired to make a pretend bomb shelter in my basement after seeing a newsreel about them at the movies. Our version of a bomb shelter was a table that had a blanket over it. I thought that Emily would talk about what bomb shelters were like in England when she got to my house. But when Emily arrived, she was very shy and quiet. She was also skinny and pale. After Emily unpacked her suitcase, we went down to the basement to show her our bomb shelter. Emily didn't want to play in it and went back upstairs to our room to write a letter to her parents. Mom told me to be as warm and friendly and welcoming as I could be to Emily, and I agreed. I did my best to make friends with her, but I didn't get very far. Days later, we had a surprise blackout drill. Blackout drills meant we had to turn off all the lights in our house and cover the windows with blackout curtains so any German planes that came to America couldn't see our house in the dark. Then we had to sit in the basement until the drill was over. It was a safety precaution for us, so we would know what to do in case our house got bombed, though there wasn't much of a chance of being bombed. When the blackout drill siren went off, I started heading towards the basement with Brad and saw that Emily wasn't following me. She was sitting at the kitchen table still as a stone, and her face looked white. She also looked scared. I was able to reassure her that it was just practice, and she went down the stairs with me and Brad to the basement. Emily sat in the darkest corner wrapped up in a blanket. I sat next to her, and she told me about blackout drills in London. She said that the worst part was always sitting in the dark waiting. She and her family had to do them almost every night. They would hear an awful noise, split second of silence, and then the explosion. Her whole house would shake. If you were outside when the siren went off, you'd have to make a dash for the subway. They would have to sleep there all night, with hundreds of other people all crowded together. But it was almost worse afterwards when they came out in the morning. A house they walked past every day, or maybe even their own, would just be nothing but a pile of bricks. Sometimes the flowers would still be growing along a path, and the path would lead to nothing. The house would be gone. It was so terrifying. I told Emily we were safe, and now she was safe too. She told me that her parents were still in London, and that sometimes she felt like a coward to have left London. I told her that I thought she was the bravest person I knew next to my dad. Emily said if she was really brave, she would have asked her parents to let her stay. I talked about the two princesses from England, Margaret Rose and Elizabeth, having to sleep in the dungeons in Windsor Castle every night to be safe from the bombs. Turns out Emily likes the princesses from England too, and had a scrapbook full of pictures of them. The all-clear signal went off and the blackout drill was over. We looked at Emily's scrapbook. Here it is right here. After seeing a picture of the princesses in matching outfits, I realized we could dress alike too, with our matching blue skirts, blue sweaters, and white blouses. Emily even let me borrow a pair of her blue knee socks. Then Emily pointed out that my name starts with the letter M, like Margaret Rose. And I pointed out that Emily's name starts with the letter E, like Elizabeth. Another way we're like the princesses. I told Emily if I really wanted to be like the princesses, I'd have to get a dog, and that we would just have to pretend we had dogs. Starting then, we pretended to have imaginary dogs. We even took our imaginary dogs for a walk every day, using our jump ropes as leashes for them. When we came home from our walk one day, my mom asked me what kind of birthday party I wanted to have. I wasn't sure, but when Emily mentioned she used to have a tea party in London for her birthday, I decided that was what I wanted. I even offered to share my birthday with Emily, to make up for all the birthday parties she had to miss when the war started, and Emily thought it would be very nice indeed. Our party was called the Princess's Tea Party. After Emily wrote out the proper English way of writing birthday party invitations, and we talked about the food and drinks that would be served, but we had different ideas on what we wanted. My ideas were hot cocoa, milk, peanut butter sandwiches, hot dogs, cake, and ice cream. Emily wanted to have tea to drink. She suggested putting lots of hot milk and honey inside so our guests would like it. She also wanted tea sandwiches, bread and butter, and a lemon tart. I finally agreed to eat what was on Emily's menu, but I didn't think that the birthday tea party was such a good idea anymore after hearing Emily's ideas. But all the girls at school thought it sounded absolutely wonderful. Emily and I were both jittery with excitement the night before the party. We blew up balloons, made party hats, put poppers, candy cups, and blowouts at each place on the table, and hung paper streamers across the ceiling. The room looked all ready for a wonderful party. When we woke up the next morning on my birthday, Jill and Ricky came into my room with our first birthday present of the day. Our puppies! Say hi, you two. Woof woof. This is my puppy. His name is Yank. And this is my puppy. I named him Bennett, after Emily, of course. We were left to get acquainted with our puppies while my family made us a royal breakfast. When Mom came back upstairs, she told us there was another surprise in my closet. 2 new birthday dresses for us that looked exactly the same. We loved them. Now everything was perfect. It was a spectacular birthday party, one we'll never forget. 2 weeks after our party, Emily's Aunt Primrose got out of the hospital, and Emily went to stay with her. I was sad when she left, but we still saw each other at school, and still took our puppies for walks together. When school ended for the summer, Emily and her aunt went to Wisconsin to visit family friends. I was disappointed again to see Emily leave, but I was actually going on a trip of my own, to summer camp. Thank you for your time, Emily. Thank you for talking to our audience. Thank you for having me. Bye, everyone. Bye. Now, where were we? Oh, yes, of course. Summer camp. I went to camp with Linda and Susan. The camp we went to was called Camp Gowanagan. We would be staying there for 2 weeks. We loved it there right away. Our days at camp began with the morning flag raising ceremony and breakfast in the dining hall. Then we would play softball, volleyball, and basketball. We had swimming, tennis, and sailing lessons. There was also archery, campfires, sing-alongs, weenie roasts, and nature hikes. On rainy days, we worked on our arts and crafts projects. Our days ended with the evening flag lowering ceremony. We sang the Camp Gowanagan song as the flag was lowered. One night after dinner, the camp counselor, Miss Butternut, announced that tomorrow we would be playing a game called Color War. Here's how it went. The girls were divided into 2 teams, the Reds and the Blues. The red team took an American flag to an island called Chocolate Drop Island. The red team had to guard the flag. while the blue team had to find out a way to capture the flag from the red team without getting caught. If the blue team got caught, they were put in prison, and the prisoners could only be freed by someone on their team that wasn't in prison. The team that had the flag at sundown would be the winner. The counselors would be watching us to make sure we were safe, but they were well hidden, so we couldn't see them. Susan and I were on the blue team while Linda was on the red team. The captain of my team was a bossy girl named Dorinda Brassey. That night, I wasn't sure I liked the idea of color war, and I was worried that Dorinda would tell me to swim underwater, and I hated being underwater. Susan didn't like canoeing. Linda told me and Susan that maybe color war would give us the chance to do something we were afraid of, and reveals that she was afraid of spiders, bugs, and worms. The next morning, after the red team left for Chocolate Drop Island, Dorinda ordered all us blues to the boathouse to tell us her plan of attack. The plan was we would row our canoes to the beach on Chocolate Drop Island and march up Chocolate Drop Hill. Dorinda would capture the flag while the rest of us would take the red team prisoner, lead them back to our canoes, and return them to the boathouse. I thought that the red team would have scouts that would see us coming across the lake, and that the red team would be waiting for us at the beach when we landed and be ready to take us all prisoner. I asked Dorinda if there was any other place we could land so they wouldn't see us, but Dorinda said no, and those were her orders. She sent us to the canoes, and we started heading towards Chocolate Drop Island. Susan and I were in the last canoe at the end of the line. I saw the red team scout watching us. She turned around and went to go warn the others. I just knew they were going to put us all in prison. Susan dropped her paddle and she leaned way out over the side of the canoe to get it. I couldn't stop her. We fell in the water. I struggled to the surface. When I finally got to the surface, I swam over to Susan. We pushed the canoe into a narrow cut on the beach. We sat down on the rocks and caught our breath. Then we used our camp hats to scoop the water out of the canoe. When we finished, I paddled our canoe around the corner of Chocolate Drop Island until we saw the beach. There were the other blue team canoes, and our teammates were sitting behind the canoes in the prison, and Linda was the prison guard. Susan and I paddled back to the boathouse and dug up a plan. The first step of the plan was getting worms, bugs, spiders, sticks, and stems under the wooden platform beneath our tent. Then Susan paddled us back to Chocolate Drop Island. We stopped at the narrow cut again. Originally, the plan was for me to paddle the canoe around to the beach while Susan climbed around the edge of the island and free our teammates from prison. But Susan decided to paddle the canoe and I would free our team instead. I agreed. But when I saw that the path was gone, I realized I would have to swim. At first, I kept my head above the water, but then I saw Linda coming towards me. I had to swim underwater, which was okay. When I came back up to the surface, Susan was keeping the red team guessing if they should take Susan prisoner or paddle out in their canoes to get her as she paddled to the island and then paddled away. I snuck up behind Linda and dumped the worms and bugs and spiders on her head. I was supposed to take Linda prisoner too, but I couldn't do it. I ran to my teammates in the prison and freed them. We all paddled back to the boathouse. I learned that Dorinda was in a special captain's prison. Susan thought I should be the new team leader. I thought about the D-Day invasion when the soldiers spilled out of the boats, ran across the beach, and scrambled up the rocky cliffs along the shore. I decided we should do something just like that to capture the flag. We would land the canoes at the narrow cut again and make a floating dock out of our canoes as our way to sneak onto the island where the red team wouldn't see us. We once again set out for Chocolate Drop Island. When we were all on the island, I gave out directions, but no one moved. The narrow cut of the island was called Poison Point, and the reason it was called Poison Point is because there was poison ivy there. The girls didn't want to crawl through it, but I sat smack down in the poison ivy. We then moved on with our plan. My teammates tagged the Red Army girls guarding the flag, and I pulled the flag out of the ground and waved it over my head. We won! The girls on my team let out a big cheer. Then we all headed back to camp. Miss Butternut wanted to know how I ended up capturing the flag. Susan told the story, but when she got to the part about us being at Poison Point, Miss Butternut told all us girls who were there to go to the showers and then go to the camp nurse before we got our ice cream. But it was too late for us. We were all going to get poison ivy. What luck! As Susan and I went to our tents to get our towels, Linda came up to us and gave us an ice cream cone. The next morning, almost all us girls at camp, including me and Susan, were all covered in poison ivy. Luckily, there was calamine lotion at camp we could use to heal it. When summer ended and it was time to go back to school, me, Susan, and Linda were all in the same class again. But another Christmas went by without Dad being home to celebrate with us. I wondered how much longer I would have to wait to see him again. I took tap dancing lessons at school. Me, Linda, and Susan, and the other girls in our tap dance class were going to put on a show called Hooray for the USA. The show was being put on at the Veterans Hospital in Jefferson. The hospital was full of hurt and wounded soldiers from the war. We were going to wear red, white, and blue costumes so that we looked like a big flag on stage. At one point during our dance number, a girl would do a special tap dance solo. She was called Miss Victory. I knew the dance by heart, and I could even do it with my eyes closed. Everyone in my family was going to be in the show too. I wanted so much to be Miss Victory, but since Miss Victory wore a silver crown with stars on her head, I thought it would look dumb on my head since I wore braids. I thought Miss Victory's hair should be curly. I became interested in getting a permanent wave after Susan said her sister got one and now had lots of curls. Although Linda was doubtful at first about it, she agreed to pitch in her Saturday movie money with me and Susan so we could buy one for me. When I got home, there was a letter from Dad, and guess what it said? He was coming home! We exploded in happiness. Dad had been away for 2 years, and now he was finally coming home. And right then, it looks like he would be home in time to see us all in the Hooray for the USA show. I wanted to be Miss Victory more than ever, and I definitely wanted to get a permanent wave. I wanted Dad to see me dance that special Miss Victory dance and make him proud. When Saturday rolled around, me, Linda, and Susan headed to the drugstore and bought the permanent wave kit. Susan was going to give me the permanent wave, but when we got back to my house, Susan skipped the first step, which was washing my hair, and went right for the lotion. Oh, that lotion smelled terrible. I suspected Susan didn't really know what she was doing. Jill came upstairs and realized what we were doing. She told me I would regret doing the permanent wave, and that she would set my hair for the show, which we started the next evening. The first thing Jill did was twist strands of my hair into curlicues and then pins the curlicues with crisscross bobby pins. They hurt my hair, but I didn't complain. When Jill took the pins out the next morning, my hair was curly, and the girls at school loved my new look. But at tap dancing class, my hair straightened itself out as I danced. Jill tries something new every night to keep my hair curly. She twisted it around rags, rolled it up in a hairnet, glued it up with cream, and drenched it with hair lacquer. Each morning I woke up with curls, but when I danced, the curls went away. The night before I tried out to be Miss Victory, Jill wet my hair, twisted it up into tight pin curls, and then wet it again. I was given the warning to not take the pins out until the very last minute. When I did, my hair was dry and I had glorious wavy curls. I danced in perfect time to the music, and I won the part of Miss Victory. I was so happy. This is my Miss Victory costume. The girls in my class clapped for me. Mom told me no more curls in my hair until right before the show, which was kind of a relief. My nose was actually kind of runny. I was afraid I might be catching a cold. Plus, my scalp needed a rest from the pin curls. The night before the dress rehearsal for the show, Mom let me sleep with the pin curls in my hair so I'd have curly hair for the rehearsal. The show began with Allison's mom singing the national anthem. Then Ricky performed in the band. Brad was in a little skit about buying war bonds. Next, the mayor of Jefferson spoke. When he was done, Mom gave a speech about asking people to donate blood to the Red Cross. Then Jill sang in the church choir. And after that, we put on our Miss Victory dance. There was a lot of applause when we finished, and I mean a lot. When we came home from the rehearsal, it was late. I was very, very tired. My head felt heavy, which made it hard to hold up as Jill said it in the wet, tight pin curls before bed. I also felt weak and shivery, but I told myself I was just tired and not sick. But my head still felt heavy when I woke up the next morning. My throat was sore, my nose was completely stuffed up, my ears were in pain, and all my muscles ached. I couldn't even eat my breakfast. My mom put her hand on my forehead and said I was burning up. I told her I wasn't sick and was sure I didn't have a fever, but I did have a fever, and it was a high one too, 103 degrees. I got back in my pajamas and climbed into Mom's bed. Mom called the doctor, and turns out I had a very bad ear infection. After Mom talked to the doctor, she came in with sad news. I had to stay in bed until the fever went away. I couldn't perform as Miss Victory anymore. I cried and cried. That afternoon, we received a telegram from Dad that said his travel plans had been changed and he didn't know when he would be home. That just made me even more sad. Now Dad wouldn't see the show at all. Everything was ruined. But soon after everyone left for the show, Dad came home. I ran right to him and hugged him for a long time. And when he looked at me, he said I looked perfect. And that made me very happy. Well, everybody, that's the end of my story. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all later. Bye! This story was taken from the American Girl books about Molly McIntire.